So, I have a bit of a reputation in the One Piece community for being the Oda needs to kill off Usopp guy, and I have come here to apologize. For absolutely nothing. Yeah, shut it. Usopp is great. He's actually one of my favorite crew members, if not my favorite, and he's one of the Straw Hats that has always managed to come in clutch and is just such a big inspiration. I am in no way, shape, or form an anti-Usopp person. I would even argue that I'm more pro-Sniper King than most people and think he's maybe one of the best written characters in the story, and that is exactly why he needs to get buried 6 feet under ASAP. This Tengu-looking, sniper-shooting, lying punk should die before the end of the series because it's just gonna be the perfect ending to his entire character arc. Think about it. Oda has the chance to take Usopp from a pretty solid, cool Straw Hat and just turn him straight up into the best member of the crew and the most epic moment in the series, and all he's gotta do is, Now, I know this is a pretty wild thing to propose, and while I truly doubt if Oda would actually pull the trigger and drop one of the Straw Hats for real in his story, I do want to really talk about all of the amazing things that could happen if Oda actually decided to get rid of Usopp. How this would impact the crew, why it's narratively just the right choice, and what it could mean for the series as a whole. So, let me hit you with the good stuff, the narrative reasons surrounding a good death, and talk to you about why death, and particularly the death of Usopp, is a really good thing approved. Alright, so basically across all of media, including anime, manga, novels, television, film, death is used as the ultimate capstone to a character's arc, and in my opinion, there is just no more noble or powerful death than the self-sacrifice. You know what I'm talking about. The point in the story where everything seems lost, the heroes are about to lose or die, but one brave person steps up and puts the team on their back, giving their life for the cause. Some characters here that come to mind for me, for example, are Tony Stark in the Avengers, Gandalf in the Mines of Moria, or if you want something more anime, there's the famous Goku against Cell Death, of course. And these are all incredibly triumphant moments where a character throws their own life away to save their friends, family, or even the entire world. I would say it is the ultimate sign of bravery and is normally something reserved for the most important and most awesome characters in a show. But I mean, come on. It's Oda we're talking about here, right? Like, the man who never lets anybody hit the floor? Well, that isn't, of course, exactly the case either. I will admit he could kill off a few more people here and there, not gonna complain about that, but death is something that Oda has and will use when the time is right for him and for his story. The biggest and brightest of which is, of course, the infamous death of Portgas D. Ace, who sacrificed himself for Luffy during Marineford. But I also want to remind you of a few other people who pulled this off quite well. Particularly, Oda loves dropping bodies during flashbacks and backstories, since their purpose is, some sort of origin story, not that relevant for the main course of events right now. For example, there is Kuzuki Oden, a brave warrior who died to save his disciples and country, who needed to die as a way to inspire the Scabbards, Momo, and also Yamato. Then there is my favorite flashback and favorite clown in the story, Corazon, who did you think? Who threw his own life away to save Law. And then we have Pedro, who helped the crew survive Whole Cake Island as well by sacrificing himself in the explosion. And I guess if you want to count him, which I definitely think you should, there's also Kuma, who gave up his consciousness to save Bonnie, his sort of almost adopted daughter, I guess. And even though he tends to avoid death, when he decides the time is right, Oda does use it very well and impactfully in One Piece as well. And especially as we enter the final saga now, it does seem like Oda is now slowly ready to stop pulling his punches and let some more important characters fall as well. I'm gonna be careful here because I might be wrong and then, gonna look very stupid, but Kid does seem to be gone, Ashura Doji and Izu are gone, and even Vegapunk, I'm just playing. Apparently, Vegapunk is fine in multiples. But regardless of that, my point here is that, and bear with me on this, if there is one single Straw Hat who should get this treatment, or if I needed to pick one who, needed to die, it's gonna be Usopp. And well, maybe Luffy as well, but I will cover that when I address some of the counterpoints to my train of thought in just a moment in this video as well. Okay, so we are on the same page now, I think, about Oda's views on death and why it gets used in fiction, so I think I can actually break down Usopp's key reasons for being killed to you now as well. And to me, kind of the secret of all of this lies within his true dream, because as you and me know, Usopp's big dream is to become a brave warrior of the sea. He screamed it out during the iconic barrel scene in chapter 100 here, and pretty much every aspect of his character is framed around him trying to accomplish this very goal. Now, being a well-written character, of course, sometimes he fails, like when he leaves the crew in Water 7, but he always locks in at some point and remembers what is pushing him. Also, a quick side note that I normally don't talk about too much, but I actually kind of feel like the movies focus on this aspect of him the best. Like in Stampede and Film Red, Usopp literally sets up the major final fights by stepping up and facing off against some true god-level threats in these movies. In Stampede, Usopp is beaten and on death's door, yet he proudly fires off attacks at Douglas Bullet, a rival of Gold Roger. And then in Film Red, Usopp straight up saves the day by manning up and accessing a, kind of like souped up version of observation hockey, guiding the Straw Hats to like another dimension to fight Todd Musica by mind-linking with his own father, Usopp, who is directing the Red Hair Pirates in the same way in the real world. I've kind of noticed that the films absolutely love to show Usopp saving the day, and he normally does this on the brink of death. And so I just think that Oda will and should actually kill Usopp when he does a very comparable thing in the main story. And so at this point, I think you might be starting to understand, hopefully, where I'm at least going with this, whether you're agreeing or not. But Usopp has this one key goal, and I do think that he's the perfect crew member to die realizing this goal. Like, his dream can be achieved by dying. Simply put to me, there is no better way in the context of One Piece to become a brave warrior of the sea than Usopp stepping up at a crucial moment to a massive looking foe and sacrificing himself for either Luffy or the entire crew. Because not only would it resolve his own big dream, but the potential events that could follow this would be absolutely cataclysmic if Oda did it right. And the biggest reason that I think that a sacrifice is almost necessary for Usopp at this point to realize his dream is because I think that it would be the only way to convince the only person that can actually say that he has accomplished his own goal, which is himself. Because I think we kind of have to face the fact that his dream is incredibly subjective, unlike some of the other Straw Hats. I mean, Chopper wants to cure all diseases, Zoro wants to become the strongest swordsman in the world, and Luffy wants to become Pirate King. These are fairly measurable goals in some way or form. They all have a very clear sign of this is now accomplished. All diseases are now curable, Chopper has nailed it. Mihawk gets defeated, Zoro wins. Luffy claims the One Piece, finds Laugh Tale, boom, he has become Pirate King. You get the idea. But Usopp, well, he kind of needs to think that he's now brave himself, because quite honestly, the whole crew probably already thinks this. Usopp has been brave throughout the entire story, always stepping up against enemies and obstacles way bigger than himself. Like, sure, he runs away and is a goofball, but he has also saved thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, time after time after time. He stepped up to some Yonko-level threats, he's battled some of the fiercest pirates on the sea, and he's put himself in harm's way hundreds of times at this point in the story. May I remind you that he literally declared war on the world government without an ounce of hesitation. Like, this dude is a brave person, and God, Usopp, for crying out loud. He has basically achieved his dream in the eyes of pretty much everybody else at this point, but not in his own eyes. He lies a bunch, uses false confidence, and well, is still chasing this dream of his as if he's still fairly far away. And that means that in his own eyes, he still isn't a brave warrior of the sea. Not yet. And by the end of the story, I don't think doing more of what he's already been accomplishing will make him look at himself as a brave warrior any more than it is right now. So if you ask me, which you might not be, but I'm still telling you, I don't think that Usopp knows what his metric to becoming a brave warrior really is, and so the only way that he'll discover it is in the moment, a true moment of crisis where he can break his standards and become brave in his own mind. And what better way, please, is there than giving his own life to save everyone else. So, clearly, Oda isn't having Usopp consider bravery the act of doing things despite fear, because if that were to be the case, he'd already have achieved his dream in Arlong Park. So to me, it's becoming increasingly clear that Usopp needs a different measurement or benchmark for his own bravery, and I think I know just the thing that Oda is gonna use. Alright, imagine this with me, because this is kind of the best way that I feel like I can paint you a picture of what I'm all talking about here. Imagine that Imu got the crew captured, or the Holy Knights are about to slay Luffy on the executioner's platform in Marijua, mimicking Ace at Marineford. Garling is about to cut him down, or Imu themselves is about to destroy him, but one lone warrior has managed to break through the noise. Nobody considered this man a threat, so they didn't capture him, or his cowardly behavior let him escape when everyone else got captured. But that is exactly what was necessary to save everyone. Usopp lines up a shot, screaming out to his captain and his crew. He shoots Luffy's bindings, freeing his captain, but in the process, an admiral or holy knight cuts him down. They kill Usopp, but the Straw Hats now have a chance at defeating everyone, all thanks to their brave sniper, and in his dying moments, he realizes what he has done, and like a true hero, a brave warrior of the sea, he can now die with a smile. So tell me, can you imagine how clutch that would be? How beautiful and tragic? Usopp, the coward and liar, squaring up to a literal god to free his own captain, the true sun god, helping him free the world. I mean, I know this is only hypothetical, and I do want to be clear that this situation isn't the only way I feel like this could work out. Usopp could do a ton of different things depending on the situation that Oda sets up. He could shoot Blackbeard, Imu, Akainu, or really any of the biggest, threats left in the series, or even, something more physical, being crushed, holding back, I don't know, a boulder, whatever. It could be whatever, but I truly see this as the best way for Usopp to fulfill his dream by also giving us the most talked about moment in the story at this point, because he would be doing this for everyone else without a care in the world for what happens to himself. And if that's not bravery, I don't know what is. That is an act of heroism that could make him believe that he himself is the brave warrior of the sea accomplishing his dream, and maybe he'll even go out saving his army of 8,000 people that we know he lied about earlier on in the series. After all, while his lies seem like a far-off dream, they always end up coming true one way or another. Also, speaking of dreams, I think you could all help me achieving my dream of becoming the king of the One Piece content creators. I just want to make the best content for you guys. But to create all of this, you need editors, channel managers, artists, and well-builds. I really think that you, the person watching this video, deserve more than I can normally provide. And that's why on my Patreon, you can access exclusive videos, early access to things like my podcast Drink Sake, and also special theory reviews, early chapter discussions, other bonus content, and our art assets that we use on the channel, and every single cent goes back into making these videos. I think it's a pretty good deal, but more importantly, it means a great deal to me if you go over there and help me out, and big shout out to everyone who already does. Of course, you don't have to. Our main and most important content is and always will be free, but if you enjoy the content we make here, you're really missing out by not joining. So, with that being said and the bills being paid, that's it, right? That's all for Usopp and his dream. Of course not, we're just getting started. I also think that this specific act of selfless heroism would be something that ripples throughout the entire crew. No, the entire world, even our real world of fandom, and if it happened, would be by far the most important moment in the entire series. Because I think that Usopp giving his life and being the first, if not only Straw Hat to ever die, would absolutely change the entire final war and how we all watch the show. Now, let's face it, at this point, it is almost guaranteed that someone tragic is gonna die in the final saga. Oda has been foreshadowing that since Marineford, because all of the pre-time skip arcs have had elements and major plot points that repeat or foreshadow events later in the series, like Enel and Skypiea seem to mirror Imu and their plans to conquer the world. Alabasta had pretty much the same structure and plotline to Dressrosa, and to me, Marineford is probably gonna outline for what will happen in the final big war. And so if Usopp fills that ace role, something massive is gonna happen to Luffy as a result as well. But unlike last time where it completely broke and destroyed Luffy, I think this could actually be the moment where Luffy truly awakens his full power. In fury, rage, or even out of true respect and love, making sure Usopp doesn't die in vain. As a result, Luffy could truly explode in power, finally putting him on the level of Emu or Blackbeard in the final war as a result, giving him that final power-up. But there's also a ton of other characters that would rally behind this. Everyone from Dressrosa, the Giants, and all the Straw Hats could absolutely break their limits, all thanks to Usopp's dramatic sacrifice. Or, alternatively, Usopp might risk his life to activate an ancient weapon or set off the Eternal Flame, bringing about the new dawn. Again, it could be so many different things that could lead to this, but to me, it has to be Usopp that risks his life for everything. But why though? Like, why not Luffy, Zoro, Sanji? After all of these characters who have always put their bodies and lives on the line for their crew and the world would make a pretty good choice, right? And that is a fair counterpoint that we need to address here. Because it does make sense, right? Luffy always takes on crazy damage, as we saw during, Kuma's pain transfer on Thriller Bark, for example. Luffy's just the natural choice for Oda to have someone risk it all for the world. I think it's easy to forget, but his lifespan is still shortening every time he uses Gear 2nd. He's only unlocking Gear 5 by literally dying, and if he is a true parallel to Roger, death might also just be inevitable for Luffy once the series wraps up. And I guess by that same course of logic, Zoro or Sanji would be the same way. I mean, Zoro has thrown caution to the wind many times, especially when he battled Kaido, King, you know how he seemed to encounter the Grim Reaper, or when nothing happened on Thriller Bark. And Sanji has the ultimate defensive body and has tried to sacrifice himself before on Skypiea and literally went back to his personal hell for the crew during Zou and Whole Cake Island. So these are all natural picks based on their behavior already, no? So I do think it makes a ton of sense for Oda to use, any or all of these in a massive sacrifice play to bring the new dawn. I think you'd probably agree to this, right? But also, I do think that that's the exact reason that it can never be them. Like, they are already brave warriors of the sea who have done this plenty of times. They're the monster trio, the men who put it all on the line every single arc, no question. But Usopp, he needs to become like the monster trio. Because let's be honest, it wouldn't hit anywhere near as hard if those three pulled this move, because we all would kind of be expecting it. It's the obvious choice and doesn't have quite the same emotional pull, even though it would probably still be epic. But Usopp, the one person who never stands equal with anyone despite being the fourth crew member who has, sailed with them the longest, he must be that person to shatter expectations and throw it all away to save them this time. They are all already Yonko level threats. They are characters who could really use their power to save the day. They're gonna be needed to win the war in general. And Usopp, well, I don't think that I'm crazy for thinking that he's not exactly gonna be that someone defeating Emu or any of the Holy Knights, right? But instead, he is someone who could save his crew, someone that nobody would expect to do so, and as a result is almost the only person who could pull this off. But most importantly, he's the one that Oda told us wants to. A dude whose only goal is to become a brave warrior. And this could truly put a nice bow on Usopp's character arc throughout the entire series and let him truly make up for leaving the crew during Water 7. If he ends up being the most invested crew member who, regardless of power, steps up when the time is right to save everyone, it would be the perfect capstone for a pretty damn near perfect character. So Usopp, I am sorry, but to save all of us and give us the best story ever, you might have to die. And I will be right there crying my eyes out if that actually happens. But don't worry, Usopp, I'm not a hater. I don't think you're the only person who should die. I do think there are plenty of other characters roaming the seas right now that need to end up in Davy Jones's locker as well, if you catch my drift. In particular, I can think of 7 characters here who should die by the end of the series, and if you want to see who they are, you can check out that video right here. It was actually my personal inspiration for writing this one, and I think you'll understand why. With that being said, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, and thanks again to all the Patreons. Go check it out. All right.